Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. Today, I am doing adult Bible studies. Now, my plan was not to do adult Bible studies today. Last week, because all of the readings from the adult Bible studies booklet were from Psalms, and I've read all of them already. And so I'm trying to avoid reading what I've already read. Like this week, Revelations is in a revelation. There's a series of verses from Revelation that are part of this reading for this week. We have daily readings. This quarter is God Provides, Fall 2023. And the first unit was about food, and the second unit was about water. So here you can see, except for this one verse from Isaiah, all of these were from Psalms. So last week I read Jeremiah 30, which is a prophetic chapter that relates what's going on in the world today. And I thought that I would read this week, instead of doing adult Bible studies, that I would read another prophetic chapter. Well, God provided. Now, I'm reading the four Gospels. I haven't read from Jeremiah except for Jeremiah 30. I haven't read from Ezekiel. And I've read Revelations, and I'm reading the Gospels. So that leaves us with Ezekiel, Jeremiah, and Zachariah 14:9-6. Zachariah Chapter 14 was the chapter I was going to read for prophetic studies because of current events instead of the adult Bible studies reading. So we are reading Zachariah Chapter 14. And it fits both the prophetic series and the adult Bible studies both. God answers prayer. I was praying because I didn't know what to do, but He provided the answer because Zechariah 14 is both. The Lord will rule the earth. Zechariah 14, starting in verse 1. Watch, for the day of the Lord is coming, when your possessions will be plundered right in front of you. I will gather all the nations to fight against Jerusalem. The city will be taken, the houses looted, and the women raped. Half the population will be taken into captivity, and the rest will be left among the ruins of the city. Then the Lord will go out to fight against those nations as He fought in past times. On that day His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will split apart, making a wide valley running from east to west. Half of the mountain will move toward the north and half towards the south. You will flee through the valley, for it will reach across to Azel. Yes, you will flee as you did from the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all His holy ones with Him. On that day, the sources of light will no longer shine. Yet there will be continuous day. Only the Lord knows how this could happen. There will be no normal day and night, for at evening time it will still be light. On that day, life-giving waters will flow out from Jerusalem, half towards the Dead Sea and half towards the Mediterranean, flowing continuously in both summer and winter, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day there will be one Lord. His name alone will be worshipped. And all the land from Jebus north of Judah to Rimmon south of Jerusalem will be one vast plain. But Jerusalem will be raised up in its original place and will be inhabited all the way from the Benjamin gate over to the site of the old gate, then to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hanel to the king's wine presses. And Jerusalem will be filled, safe at last, never again to be cursed and destroyed. And the Lord will send a plague on all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Their people will become like walking corpses, their flesh rotting away. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. On that day they will be terrified, stricken by the Lord with a great panic. They will fight their neighbors hand to hand. Judea too will be fighting at Jerusalem. The wealth of all the neighboring nations will be captured, great quantities of gold and silver and fine clothing. This same plague will strike the horses, mules, camels, donkeys, and all the other animals in the enemy camps. In the end, the enemies of Jerusalem who survive the plague will go up to Jerusalem each year to worship the King, the Lord of heaven's armies, and to celebrate the festival of shelters. Any nation in the world that refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of heaven's armies, will have no rain. If the people of Egypt refuse to attend the festival, the Lord will punish them with the same plague that he sends on the other nations who refuse to go. Egypt and the other nations will be all punished if they don't go to celebrate the festival of shelters. On that day, even the harness bells of the horses will be inscribed with these words, Holy to the Lord. And the cooking pots in the temple of the Lord will be sacred as the basins used beside the altar. In fact, every cooking pot in Jerusalem and Judea will be holy to the Lord of heaven's armies. All who come to worship will be free to use any of these pots to boil their sacrifices. And on that day, there will be no longer be traitors in the temple of the heaven's armies. It's wild how this worked out, that I could read this and do the adult Bible studies, because this is part of the adult Bible studies. Now, the focal passage for the daily reading for the adult Bible studies was verse 6 to 9. I'm going to reread this passage. On the day of the source of light will no longer shine, yet there will be continuous day. Only the Lord knows how this could happen. There will be no normal day and night for evening time. It will be still light. On that day, life-giving waters will flow out of Jerusalem, half towards the Dead Sea and half towards the Mediterranean, flowing continuously in both summer and winter. And the Lord will be king over the earth. On that day there will be one Lord. His name alone will be worshipped. The unit in the adult Bible studies is about water. And this lesson is telling us that the Lord is the source of our nourishment, our water, our spirituality. Water is a symbol for the Holy Spirit and for God, and how God replenishes us and keeps us nourished. And so this vision of the future where Jerusalem will have all the water it needs and the Dead Sea will be replenished is astounding. But we have to have faith to know that God is going to provide for us. Just like when Moses and Aaron led the people out of Egypt to freedom, they were thirsty. And many of them didn't have faith. But Moses struck a rock in the desert, and water came from it. They're saying now that water is the new oil, that wars are being fought over water. Of course, they're also being fought over natural gas and oil, but as water becomes rare, people will fight over water. People in the past have already fought over water. Like the ranchers, and when the creek is flowing through and the water starts to go down, there starts to be a drought. So the rancher to the north with the south flowing stream dams up that water. So he has enough for his crops and his cattle and his family. But then the rancher or farmer to the south of there then doesn't have any water. So do you think those two men are going to fight? Of course they are. Because one is killing the other to survive. Because there's a limited amount of a resource, life-giving water. So yes, there's going to be conflict, but God is telling us that Israel will be provided for. And there'll be this huge amount of water. And the Dead Sea is going to be replenished. That's huge. And we think, well, how could this happen? Well, it mentions an earthquake. And all this is quite possible. And even if we were looking here and somebody out there says, oh, I'm a geologist, or, I'm a scientist, and what you're saying is not possible. We Christians have to know. And the Jews, this is in Zachariah, have to know, have to have faith that God will do this thing, that they will be provided water in Jerusalem and in Israel and that entire region. So have faith. God will provide you the water you need. And I mean that spiritually as well as physically. You all have a wonderful and blessed day.